Good afternoon, namaskar. The mere fact that I'm beginning my talk today with greetings in two different languages perhaps indicates to you it has something to do with global. And yes, it is. I will be talking on the topic of global innovation, a topic that's very, very close to my heart. I will also be talking about education, yet another discipline that's very close to my heart. So really to lay it out for you, two key things that are going on the global platform as far as innovation is concerned, and what kind of pedagogies and what education has to do in terms of getting us ready, getting us prepared on this global platform is what my talk will really be talking. Innovation's pendulum swing, looking beyond the rearview mirror. Brief snapshot, 40 plus years of my life in just one single slide. Began back in India, born and raised in India, most of my education back in India. Moved to the Netherlands for a postgrad program, and then a PhD in Montreal, Canada. Moved to the United States with a job at Xavier. And I call my life as a pendulum-style life. We find ourselves here in the West, going back to the East, coming back to the West again. So it's constantly going back and forth, visiting family as well. So this journey began 18 years ago for us. And when I reflect back on those 18 years, I couldn't imagine back then that we will now be talking so much more about East in our conversations, in our business conversations, in our classes as well. And part of the reason is this. When you look at this slide, we're talking about sort of called as the new normal. If you look at the transition that's happened over the last few years in terms of innovation and the 50 most innovative companies as they are ranked, we're looking at more and more companies from outside of the US coming up on these ranks. Now, what question does that pose for us? Are we doing less? Are they doing more? Whatever that question be, I think the question is, can we compete and collaborate in global innovation? And if yes, how do we do it? So let me speak to two specific things as far as global innovation is concerned. Reverse innovation. That's a new trend that we are seeing happen within innovation. Back then, till a few years ago, we would conceive of ideas here. We would have great ideas, develop them, manufacture them, processes, products, services, business models, and then take them to the East. It's no longer happening. We're seeing a lot of great ideas come from there that are penetrating into the developed world as well. 3 examples. India's Tata Nano, I think a lot of you might have heard about this, $2,400 car, made really for the low middle income group in India, now finding its way into the developed markets as well. China's BYD, the electric car, also finding its way into the developed markets. GE made a handheld ECG machine, $1,000 for the rural markets in India. So that was the consumer they were looking at. And that's a product that is, again, finding its way into the developed economy. So we've moved away partly from the traditional innovation models to a reverse innovation models that we are seeing as well. Let me speak to the second trend that we are seeing happen, called as frugal innovation, also called as jugaad in the native Hindi dialect. And when you look at the word frugal, obviously it means minimal resources. So how do you innovate with minimal resources? How do you do more with the resources that you have? Whether it's resources like space, whether it's resources like capital, you're looking at resources like land, you're looking at resources like money, whatever be it. You're looking at minimal resources. How do I do more with the resources that I have? Here's an example of that. It's called a pressure cooker. Perhaps some of you have used it. I use it every single day of my life. I boil my potatoes in this. I cook my rice in this. I cook my lentils in this. So that's something I use every single day. The way the cooking functions is it's sealed on the top. It has a gadget which kind of opens up and releases the steam. And the food gets cooked in the utensils due to the steam. So here's this one clever gentleman who came up with the idea of, why do I let the steam go waste? What is it that I can do with the steam that's getting out of that gadget? How about I use that steam to make a frothy cappuccino? So really looking at what is it that I have, why do I let that go waste, and how do I utilize that further for taking advantage of developing something else? That's example 1. Here's another example from China. A product that is still in conception. These are huge buses that are driving over cars. Now, space obviously is a constraint in China. You don't want to see a lot more congestion on the streets of China, and that is an idea in conception right now. How about we utilize and maximize whatever space that we have and capitalize on that? So really, the concept of frugal innovation, talking about rivers and then talking about frugal innovation. Now, let's think about this creatively. Now, what you're seeing up there are multiple laborers at the shipping docks, on the railway stations, at multiple other places, holding loads on their backs and on their head as well. How is it that I can design and create a product that will prevent occupational hazards for these individuals and perhaps improve the working lives for them as well? How do I do that? How do I create something like this that will serve as a pushcart, that will serve as a backpack, that will serve as an overhead carrier as well, that will perhaps have a way to change and improve the lives of millions of people across the globe and costs 300 rupees, equating to about $5 to $6 only? How do I do that? I don't think I can do it unless if I really step into the shoes of these laborers. I experience their pain point. Unless if I experience what their unmet need is, I cannot do it. I do think that requires us to rewire ourselves. I do think that's the way for us to start thinking about how do we approach this new normal? How do we start innovating in this new normal? So the neuroscientist, Michael Merzenich, he talks about the brain, and he says brain is a wonderful mechanism. It's built to change. It's built to be rewired. And he talks about brain aerobics, training. And I do think educational institutions are great gyms for these brain aerobics. I do think educational institutions, as one of the components of the national innovation systems, have the ability to rewire and educate our students to allow their brains to be rewired, to allow them to collaborate and compete in this new normal as well. So how do we do it? So we've always been very comfortable with the in-class traditional classroom. We've always been very comfortable with the in-class simulation case study methodology as well. All of that is wonderful. We do need it. We do need that explicit knowledge base. But what we also need is a process of immersion. We also need the tacit knowledge base, which you really get by experiencing something in the field, by experiencing something, for example, going into the inner city in Cincinnati, going and experimenting with your sociology, economics, management, entrepreneurship, all the principles that we learn in the classroom. How do you translate those into the field? The next level of taking our students to a profoundly out of the comfort zone experience, perhaps a visit to India, experience the complexity and diversity there. Let's go to China, experience the history of China there. So really those experiences that we build in ourselves through the experiences, through this immersion of experiences as well. So what that does is, in my mind, it raises the platform. It works like a pendulum between the inquiry that we are getting out of all these experiences and moments of reflection as well. Yes, a pendulum again between what we have as pre-existing assumptions and the new facts that we develop for ourselves. A brand new model, a new model for educating our students. Obviously, this is something that we're not very comfortable with. It will require us to come out of our comfort zones. It will require us to get comfortable with cooking on a skillet, is also in a pressure cooker, as riding in spacious Mercedes-Benz is also in tiny nanos. Thinking differently, as my kids say, Mom, we've learned to speak in English. Mom, we've learned to speak in Hindi. And then they come back and say, Mom, we've learned to speak in Hinglish too. It's a combination of Hindi and English. So really, how do you train your brains to go this way and that way? My third passion, you obviously guessed it, is pendulum, right? I do believe it's a journey. I do believe it's a journey for all of us together. I do believe it's a journey for our students. I do believe it's a journey for the educators. I do believe it's a journey for the industry, the public and the private institutions, all of us together, as we join our hands together to develop all this holistic approach to train our students, to educate our students, to again compete and collaborate in this global economy and what we're seeing as the new normal. Thank you.